This recording is the third part in a series that are covering somatic sensory pathways. Specifically, this one will address temperature and looking at the role of thermoreceptors. So thermoreceptors are receptors that detect changes in temperature. And we actually have cold receptors and we also have heat receptors. Now the like pain receptors, temperature receptors have free nerve endings. They have what we call naked nerve endings. But unlike pain receptors, thermoreceptors are phasic. They adapt rapidly. Okay, so pain ones don't. This one adapts very quickly. Now, one thing I want to do, because it's a good review, I like to review, is you see that term generator potential. So a generator potential is another term for an action potential when we're talking about sensory pathways. Is you apply a stimulus, you get a receptor potential, which is a graded potential. If you reach threshold, then we have a generator potential, which is an action potential, which then would propagate along the axon and towards that central nervous system. Now, we had mentioned previously, is we have cold and hot receptors, and they're sensitive over various ranges, and you don't have to memorize them. But I want you to notice that at extremes, if the temperature gets too hot or too cold, you do have heat and cold nociceptors that will detect pain. Now, one of the things I want you to kind of focus in on this graph here, is we have applied a heat source. And here's you see the stimulus, and you've got some generator potentials being elicited by the heat sensory receptor. As the stimulus increased, you see an increased frequency. So remember, action potentials are all or none. And so how we're going to discriminate between, say, 20 degrees versus 30 degrees is by frequency of action potential. So as the stimulus magnitude increases, you see an increased frequency. But you notice as it's getting hotter and hotter, we're now starting to trigger the nociceptors. So it does get painful at a certain point when the temperature increases. Now, the temperature receptors, I had mentioned they are not tonic, they're phasic. They adapt very quickly. And this is something you can try at home. It's actually kind of a cool thing. Is you have room temperature water, and then you put a hand, one in warm water, the other one ice water, and you remove that hand and stick it into room temperature water. So if I take this one, let it sit in there for a little bit, and I put it into the room temperature water, that hand's going to feel like it's on fire, because what has happened is the cold receptors have adapted. If I've done it with this warm, like bath water, and then put it in here, it's going to feel really cold, because in this scenario, the heat receptors have adapted. In fact, you actually experience this anyway with sensory adaptation in regards to temperature receptors. Think about when you first get into a cold pool. It's like, oh, it's really cold, but then very quickly, it doesn't feel bad anymore because you start to adapt. Same way with like a warm bath. It's hot, but after a while, it's not necessarily because of, the temperature's decreasing because it's going to the air, is not going to feel as hot pretty quickly because your skin adapts to that. Your heat receptors will adapt in regards to jumping into the cold pool. The cold receptors adapt so it doesn't feel as bad. So trust me though, if the temperature changes enough, you will know. Okay, if it does increase or decrease, that you will be aware that the temperature has changed. Okay, so let's address the pathway. Now, the pathway, you have it drawn out here, but we're going to go through a different scenario. Is it actually the information in regards to temperature travels along the same tract as pain? It's actually in that lateral spinal thalamic tract. So let's do a scenario. We have put ice on the right side of your upper back. So we have kind of set up, we've got spinal cord here, we've got medulla oblongata, midbrain, and here's up in the brain. Is this time It's the right side of your upper back, so we're going to be coming on this side. And because it's coming from the back, we need to go via the dorsal ramus. So what's going to happen is, you see in the red is the first order neuron. And again, you would have drawn in your dorsal ramus because it's coming from your physical back. Here's the first order neuron in the red. Same thing again, you see the cell bodies of the first order neurons in the dorsal root ganglion right here. Here's the axons in that dorsal root. You go toward, again, the dorsal gray horn in that spinal cord. The second order neuron is going to be in blue here. So that first order neuron synapsed on the second order neurons within the dorsal gray horn, and then it's going to cross over immediately to the opposite side of the spinal cord, and it's going to send again in that lateral spinal thalamic tract. So the lateral spinal thalamic tract, which is located in the lateral white column, carries information in regards to both pain and temperature. And that will travel up, go up here to the thalamus. And since here initiated on the right side, it will be interpreted on the left side of the brain. That cell body of the third order neuron, which is right here, is in the thalamus. So we see that it's in the thalamus. And then that third order neuron is then going to take the information up again to that primary somatosensory cortex, which again is in the post-central gyrus of the parietal lobe. And since it came from the back, again, it goes, ultimate destination is a different area than when if we said it came from the foot. Came from the foot, it'd be more over here. If it came from the hand, it'd be more over here. So there's the final destination. Oh, something was hot or something was cold. We're going to interpret it there. Now, one thing I do want to mention is previous recording I went over the pain pathway. This one we're going over the temperature pathway. Both are located in the lateral spinal thalamic tract. So what if? Okay, so here's the what if. What if I damage your spinal cord, and we're only going to do the lateral white column, and we'll say maybe around T11, T12. And we're going to do it on, say, the left side. What's going to happen? Well, we already know that the lateral spinal thalamic tract is located in the lateral white column. So the person's going to have a loss of sensation below this level of the spinal cord. So we'll say it's going to be in the legs, the feet, and we're going to lose the ability to detect temperature and pain. So down in the legs area, the thigh, the feet, but what side? So let's go back to this picture here. So if I've damaged this side here, think of this as, a roadblock. The over here is carrying information from the opposite side of the body. So if I damage on the left side, here's the left side, I'm going to have the lack of sensation on the opposite side. So here it would be loss of sensation of temperature and pain on the right side. So it would be contralateral. So the contralateral means opposite side, because of the decussation took place at the level of the spinal cord. Okay? So that's just a one scenario. So next recording, we're going to look at discriminative touch and also crude touch, crude pressure.